Jane Ivanov Sandanski. Jane Ivanov Sandanski was a revolutionary recognized as a national hero in Bulgaria and the Republic of Macedonia. He was among the leaders of the internal Macedonian-Adrianople revolutionary organization in the Sars region and head of the extreme leftist wing of the organization. Biography. Sandanski was born in the village of Vlahi near Kresna in Ottoman Empire on May 28, 1872. His father Ivan participated as a standard-bearer in the Kresna Razlog uprising. After the crush of the uprising, in 1879 his family moved to Dupnitsa, Bulgaria, where Sandanski received his elementary education. Because he served as a prison guard, his name, Sandanski, distorted from Zindanski, that comes from Turkish Sandansi. Yane Sandanski was involved in the revolutionary movement in Macedonia and Thrace and became one of its leaders. He joined initially the Supreme Macedonian-Adrianople Committee in 1895 during an incursion into the Muslim-inhabited regions of the central Rhodope in Thrace. In the next 5 years, Sandanski was a SMAC activist in the Pirin region, but in 1900 returned to become a director of the local prison in Dupnitsa. In 1901, Sandanski switched to the internal Macedonian-Adrianopolitan revolutionary organization. He built up the organization's network of committees in the districts of Sars and Gorna Humaha in the Pirin region, and that is why the people gave him the nickname Pirin Tsar. He was also one from the organizers of the Macedon Affair, America's first modern hostage crisis. On September 3, 1901, a Protestant missionary named Ellen Stone set out on horseback across the mountainous hinterlands of Macedonia and was ambushed by a band of armed revolutionaries. Sandanski was also active in the anti-Ottoman Ilinden Preobrazhenie uprising. The militias active in the region of Sars, led by Yane Sandanski and an insurgent detachment of the Macedonian Supreme Committee, held down a large Turkish force. These actions began on the day of the Feast of the Cross and did not involve the local population as much as in other regions, but were well to the east of Monastir and to the west of Thrace. The failure of the Ilinden insurrection resulted in the eventual split of the IMARO into a left faction in the Sars and Strumica districts and a right-wing faction in the Bitola, Salonika and Uskup districts. The left-wing faction opposed Bulgarian nationalism and advocated the creation of a Balkan Socialist Federation with equality for all subjects and nationalities. The centralist faction of IMARO moved towards Bulgarian nationalism as its regions became incursed of Serb and Greek armed bands, which started infiltrating Macedonia after 1903. The years 1905 to 1907 saw the split between the two factions, when in 1907 Todor Panitsa killed the right-wing activists Boris Sarafov and Ivan Garvanov in order of Sandanski. The Kajustendal Congress of the right faction of the Internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization in 1908 sentenced Sandanski to death, and led to a final disintegration of the organization. After the Young Turk Revolution in 1908 and during the Second Constitutional Era, Sandanski contacted the Young Turks and started legal operation. After the disintegration of IMARO, they tried to set up the Macedonian-Adrianople Revolutionary Organization. Later, the Congress for MORO's official inauguration failed and Sandanski and Chernipiv started to work towards a creation of one of the left political parties in the Ottoman Empire, People's Federative Party, whose headquarters was in Solin. This federalist project was supposed to include different ethnic sections in itself, but this idea failed and the only section that was created was the faction of Sandanski, called Bulgarian Section. In this way its activists only revived the Bulgarian national identification, as Sandanski's faction advocated the particular interests of the Bulgarian nationality in the empire. In 1909 the group around Sandanski and Chernipiv participated in the rally of the Young Turks to Istanbul that led to the deposition of Sultan Abdulhamid II from the throne. Sandanski dreamed about the creation of a Balkan Federative Republic according to the plans of the Balkan Socialist Federation, and Macedonia as a part of that federation. He demanded that the IMARO should embrace all nationalities in the region, not only Bulgarians. In this way it would be possible to create a healthy system aimed at the organization of a mass uprising. Later Sandanski and his faction actively supported the Bulgarian army in the Balkan Wars of 1912–1913, initially with the idea that their duty is to fight for autonomous Macedonia, but later fighting for Bulgaria, (B) serving the atrocity of Serbs over the local population. Former IMORO members began restoration of the organizational network. In the same period a group around Peter Chorlev began negotiations with the Albanian revolutionaries. The temporary Albanian government proposed to them a common revolt to be organized and risen. The negotiations from the part of the organization had to be carried by Peter Chorlev. The Bulgarian government believed, however, that it would not come to a new war with Serbia, so it did not attend the negotiations. However, later, in June 1913, the Bulgarian government sent in Tirana Yane Sandanski for new negotiations. He gave an interview for the newspaper Circulo, where he said that he came to agreement with the Albanians and that from the Bulgarian side there would be organized bands and assaults. So he helped the preparation of the Oradaba uprising, organized jointly by IMORO and the Albanians of Western Macedonia. After the wars, Pirin Macedonia was ceded in 1913 to Bulgaria, and Sandanski resettled again in the kingdom, where he was killed in 1915 by his political opponents. Controversy. The Macedonian liberation movement consisted of three major factions. Led by his excessive ambitions, Sandanski came into conflict with the majority, the centralists in IMARO and the Varhovists. Although initially a member of the Bulgarian nationalistic Varhovists band, later Yane Sandanski and his heirs group proclaimed a fight for an autonomous Macedonia which was to be included in a Balkan Socialist Federation. In this manner, the policy of Sofia was completely identified to the adversary character of Athens and Belgrade. The activists of SARS nonetheless stipulated that the Macedonian question could not be resolved if it is formulated as a part of a Bulgarian national question. After the Ilindan uprising, this group insisted on cooperation with all ethnic and religious groups in the Ottoman Empire and envisioned the inclusion of Macedonia and the district of Adrianople in a Balkan federation. However, the idea of Macedonian autonomy was strictly political and did not imply a secession from Bulgarian ethnicity, even as it was seen at a later stage of the struggle by the group around Sandanski, that espoused a number of classical liberal ideas intermingled with socialism imported from Bulgaria. On the other hand, the bigger fraction, as well as that of the other revolutionary organization, Macedonian Supreme Committee Varhovists, aimed also at autonomy, but they did not expect inclusion in a Balkan Socialist Federation and had not so extreme policy by the relation to Sofia. These political differences led to sharp conflict between them. Arguably Sandanski's greatest sin in the context of the whole movement were the assassinations of the Vojvode Mikhail Diavi and later of Ivan Garvanov and Boris Sarafov, both members of the IMARO's Central Committee. He came to regret these and other murders later. Because of that, he was even sentenced to death by the Centralists. The Bulgarian authorities investigated the assassinations and suspected Sandanski was the main force behind them. On the other hand, he was amnestied by the Bulgarian parliament after the support he gave to the Bulgarian army during the Balkan Wars. There was a long history of friction between the Bulgarian Exarchate and the organization, since those more closely connected with the Exarchate were moderates rather than revolutionaries. Thus the two bodies had never been able to see eye to eye on a number of important issues touching the population in Thrace and Macedonia. In his regular reports to the Exarch, the Bulgarian bishop in Melnik usually referred to Yane as the wild beast and deliberately spelt his name without capital letters. Despite extreme leftist, he also had ever rejected the Bulgarian Exarchate as an institution, or denied that it had a role to play in the life of the Macedonian Bulgarians. Sandanski also collaborated later with the Young Turks, opposing other factions of Imaro, which fought against the Ottoman authorities in this period. During the first days of Young Turk Revolution, the collaboration of the Macedonian leftists with the Ottoman activists was stated in a special manifesto to all the nationalities of the empire. The loyalty to the empire declared by Sandanski deliberately blurred the distinction between Macedonian and Ottoman political agenda. This ideological transition was quite smooth as long as the rhetoric of Macedonian autonomous supranationalism was already quite close to the Ottomanist idea of the so-called unity of the elements. During the honeymoon of Tsar's revolutionaries and Ottoman authorities, it was the internationalist ideas of Bulgarian socialist activists that left the stamp on Sandanski's agenda. What was seen as national interests had to be subdued to the pan-Ottoman ones in order to achieve a supranational union of all the nationalities within a reformed empire. After Bulgaria lost the Balkan Wars and as a result most of Macedonia was ceded to Greece and Serbia, Sandanski attempted to organize the assassination of Bulgarian Tsar Ferdinand I, but it failed. The Centralists organized several unsuccessful assassination attempts against Sandanski. They came closest to achieving the goal in Thessaloniki, where Yane Nikolov managed to kill two other Federalists and heavily wounded Sandanski. Eventually, Sandanski was killed near the Rozhan Monastery on April 22, 1915, while traveling from Melnik to Nevrokop by local Imaro activists. Legacy. While Sandanski's legacy remains disputed among Bulgarian and Macedonian historiography, there have been attempts among international scholars to reconcile his conflicting and controversial activity. According to the Turkish professor of history Mehmet Salihoglu, who is interested in nation-building in the late Ottoman Empire, it is very difficult to find a definitive answers to some ticklish questions related to Sandanski's biography. Salihoglu's opinion is that Sandanski was de facto a betrayer of the national Bulgarian interests in Macedonia. He certainly supported the autonomy of the area as part of the Ottoman Empire, which would allow him to maintain his political role as one of the native leaders in the region. However, this does not mean he regarded the Bulgarian Macedonian population as a separate Macedonian nation. As a whole, during the early 20th century, the idea of a separate Macedonian identity was promoted only by small circles of intellectuals, but the majority of the Slavic people in Macedonia considered themselves to be Bulgarians. The turn-of-the-century internal Macedonian revolutionary organization, was in fact a largely pro-Bulgarian oriented, and its members had ethnic Bulgarian identity, including Sandanski. The historian Risto Silyanov provides a position of Sandanski's where he states that the solution of the Macedonian question is not the unity with Bulgarians, and that the Macedonian population had to emancipate itself as a self-determining people. However, Silyanov described all IMAR revolutionaries as Bulgarians and used the term Macedonian only as regional designation. In the Republic of Macedonia, Sandanski is considered a national hero and one of the most prominent revolutionary figures of the 20th century. However, some Macedonian mainstream specialists on the history of local revolutionary movement, like academician Ivan Katadiev and Ph.D. Zoran Todorovsky, argue that the political separatism of Sandanski represented a form of early Macedonian nationalism, asserting that at the time it was only a political phenomenon without ethnic character. Both define all Macedonian revolutionaries from that period as Bulgarians, as products of the Bulgarian educational system and Bulgarian church, which had a policy of producing Bulgarian national consciousness in its Exarchist schools. According to them, Macedonian identity arose mostly after the First World War, and Sandanski identified himself as Bulgarian too. Bulgarian historian Stoyan Boyadziev has described Sandanski as extremely controversial Bulgarian revolutionary, whose separatist pivot, however, produced as a whole Macedonian nationalism. Today, Sandanski is one of the names mentioned in the national anthem of the Republic of Macedonia. In Bulgaria, the communist regime appreciated Sandanski because of his socialist ideas and honored him by renaming the town Sveti Vrach to Sandanski. In 1949, in the years after the fall of communism, some right-wing Bulgarian historians have been keen to discredit his reputation. Sandanski Point on the coast of Johann Paulus II Peninsula, Livingston Island, Antarctica, was named after him by the Bulgarian Antarctic Expedition.